all doing out here? Come on, guys. Bitcoin's almost $100,000, and that's the reception you give me? Yeah, now we're a bit more awake now, huh? All right, so today we're going to be talking about, let's be honest, what absolutely everybody is actually here to learn, and that's how to make some fucking money, right? All right, so my talk is going to be on how anybody can build a seven-figure portfolio using the cryptocurrency markets. All right, so my story is making money from crypto, then going broke, and then coming back again. But there's one thing I want to teach you guys first, and that's a bit of the story arc of this presentation, and that's about probably one of my favorite movies or stories, I think, that exists, and that is the story of Gattaca, the story of two brothers. So we have Anton, who's basically what you would say, go with like a large account, right? He has a lot of raw talent, and then you compare him to Vincent, his younger brother, who is basically what you call a natural born. So Anton is a genetically modified human being, and he's a perfect specimen. So you compare this person to somebody who has a much larger account. They already have like $100,000 or $500,000. Their time in the crypto markets is going to be a lot easier, right? But the person who has a smaller account, they have to work a little bit harder. They have to grind a little bit harder. They've got to do a little bit more work to achieve their goals, to achieve their dreams. So in this part of the story, the two brothers consistently have a swimming match against each other, and Anton always wins because he's genetically modified. And his brother Vincent, who's just a natural born person, always loses the race and gives up, and Anton has to save him. But in this day, Anton actually gives up first. And Vincent, who uses the will and power of the human spirit, overcomes adversity and beats his younger brother, who's genetically modified to be a perfect human being. And that gives him the belief to move forward in his life and actually become an astronaut in the movie. So, without all that boring stuff, it'll make sense at the end. A little bit about my story. So I got involved in crypto in 2017 when the greatest of all time bull run ever happened, okay? And then basically from there, I had two businesses that went under in 2019. I lost all my money and I was pretty much broke. I had one Bitcoin and $3,000. And then I was very lucky because at that time, the federal government decided they're going to stop doing quantitative tightening and they're going to move into quantitative easing. And Bitcoin ran from about $3,000 to $14,000 very shortly after that. And I made a whole heap of money and sort of brought myself out of a very depressive state. And basically from there, we went on and we had like that amazing bull run. We had the COVID experience where, everything went to absolute shit and Bitcoin dropped from like about $10,000 down to $3,000, and then they pumped ridiculous amounts of quantitative easing into the markets. And, we had that amazing bull run. And from that point there, I managed to turn that basically $10,000 that I started with by the end of 2021 into about $3.3 million. And I managed to sell the top very publicly. One of the girls came up to me just before and said, thank you for posting your call, telling everybody that you were selling the top of the market cycle in 2021 because you saved me heaps of money. I sold all my coins, and basically from then on, the market went straight down. So thanks for coming in and saying that to me before. It's always nice to hear. And then basically, I had all this money and I thought my life was changed. And, in crypto, we like to say, we're all going to make it. Like, I thought I'd made it, right? And I was actually on my way back from Miami. I stayed over in Dubai, and I just landed in Bali, and I was running a seminar with a whole heap of our students. And the next day after I landed, the FTX crash happened, and I lost 7 figures in a day. And I was completely distraught. And obviously, this was at the bottom of the bear market. We'd just been through so much pain. It had already been so rough anyway. And I ended up losing about 50 Bitcoin when that happened. So, calculate that in today's money, it's pushing close to 7.5, 10 mil, right? Anyway, I was absolutely distraught, probably the worst time of my life. Like the rest of that, like probably 6 months, I was extremely depressed. And it took me a lot of willpower and just sheer brute force and courage to dig myself out of a really dark and depressive hole, and basically rebuilt my trading strategy, rebuilt myself, teamed up with my brother from another mother, Trader Romps over here, so give him a shout out. Come on, give him a shout out. and Slimy, who's in the back over here, who's our developer and puts all our indicators together. And we formed an amazing strategy, and I basically rebuilt from about a couple of $100,000 portfolio back to a multi-seven-figure portfolio again. So when I say anybody can build a seven-figure portfolio, I'm pretty much living proof that it can be done because I've had to do it twice using these strategies. All right, so I better hurry up because I don't know how much longer I have. Oh, we go 17 minutes. All right, so let's get into the heart of the presentation. So cycle theory. Basically, everybody overestimates what they can do in a short amount of time. But the truth of it is, everybody underestimates what they can do in a few years. And I think so many people get caught in crypto and they're looking at the short time frames all the time. They're trying to get rich in like a couple of weeks. And it's really difficult to get rich in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. But using these markets, it's actually really easy to get disgustingly wealthy in a couple of years. And that's what I'm going to teach you guys today. So the main point of this slide is that this game is about a marathon, not a sprint. And all you have to do is just make sure that you stay alive and you're pretty much guaranteed to win. So this is the cycle theory and how you're supposed to run through the cycle to basically build a seven-figure account. So first off, there's four phases of the bull market. The first one is accumulation. The second one is reaccumulation. Then we have the bull market. Then we have the bear market. So we just went through accumulation, and then when we had in 2013 was accumulation. In 2024, that's been our reaccumulation year, right? And we had a little bit of an extra rally from the ETFs. And now things have sort of started to pick up a little bit more because we just had the US election. And it's typically after the US election is when you move into the actual bull market phase of the real bull market, right? So then we usually last for about a year. And then after that, you go down into a bear market, right? And that usually lasts exactly a year. So the last bear market was actually 12 months to the date. We had one CPI release at the all-time high, and then we had one CPI release from November 10 to November 10. Was the bottom of the market after that, right? So I believe that in two cycles, basically from there the cycle starts again and repeats. So basically in two cycles, anyone should be able to build a seven-figure portfolio. And basically the reason why it's so easy, why I prefer to trade crypto anyways, because we have a four-year cycle versus what happens in the stock market. You have a 8 to 14-year cycle. So when you have the business cycle, where you have, basically the liquidity flows of what happens with the liquidity cycle and the economy and the S&P 500, that basically goes from the last cycle we had was 2008 all the way to 2022, that you had the opportunity to buy major stocks like Facebook, Amazon. Facebook was down 75% not too long ago, right? So 75% down from its all-time highs. You had Amazon down 60%. You had to wait 14 years to have the opportunity to buy these things down that far from its all-time high. Whereas in crypto, we get those opportunities to buy these things down from their all-time highs basically every 4 years. So that's where the opportunity to have that compounding growth and basically build things so fast. And why this 4-year cycle always matches up. Everybody always asks me, oh, but what happens if there's not going to be another 4-year cycle? Well, there's, even if we don't have a massive pullback in Bitcoin, we don't have a 85% pullback, we're probably going to have some sort of a bear market anyway, and there's still going to be those opportunities because the stock market still has pullbacks, right? But we might end up matching up with the cycle of the stock market, and it could end up having much longer cycles and much longer periods of time where we're in a bullish phase, which is good for us because it's easy to make money in a bull market, but then at the same time, you don't have those opportunities to buy the big sell-offs, right? So the reason why we have the 4-year cycles, first is liquidity cycle from all the central banks all around the world. We have the liquidity cycles from all the central banks all around the world. We had a big crash in 2008, and this was basically a 100-year debt cycle got reset. And from there, we had all the central banks all around the world start a new debt cycle, and it usually lasts about 4 years, right? And they all match up with the US. So you have all the central banks all around the world pulling money in and out of the economies every 4 years. And this matches up also with the US presidential cycle, which then they spend a whole heap of money. When you get the new senators in, they all want to do spending packages for the people who helped them got elected. So they push all their things through, and that creates a stimulus and inflation effect. And then we also have the Bitcoin halving. So you have a combination of the Bitcoin halving at the same time, which reduces supply, and then you have the combination of that with you have the increased demand from all the extra liquidity in the markets. So this is what it looks like on the chart. Basically, we start off, you see in the green area there, that's the accumulation phase that usually lasts for a year. In the 2019 cycle, it lasted a bit of a shorter period of time because they flipped from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing again. And that is obviously very stimulative for the economy, and Bitcoin took off after that. Plus, we had the OneCoin scam in China, which just sent Bitcoin absolutely parabolic for a couple of months until they got done by the Chinese government. And then we have the reaccumulation period, which goes for about a year as well, which is the yellow box. Then after that, we have the halving, and then we have about a 1.5-year bull run from that point forward there. And this was one of the charts that I used that helped me nail the top, the all-time high top in 2021. And one of the things I look at here is the timing and cycles of how deep we are in the cycle compared to when the halving started, how many days we are past when the halving was to where we have topped out. And we were already overextended, but I'll get into that in a little bit when we're talking about selling at all-time highs. But hopefully that makes sense. And then you have the bear market, November 10, 2021, lasted until November 10, 2022, which was the bottom. And you can look that up. They were both CPI dates, and there was big macroeconomic events that happened on that time. And you can see as well, like, this is a very old chart. If you go back and look at any of my YouTube videos or presentations and everything like this, chart actually hasn't changed, but you can see the actual price where we are is matching up perfectly from where I predicted it, right? There's a reason for that, and it's because crypto goes in what we call seasonality, and typically after, there's very strong seasonality in crypto, and typically around November period onwards is when we break out of previous all-time highs and move on. And that's why I predicted it, and we were very accurate in predicting that after the presidential election, if Trump won especially, but I think it wouldn't have mattered either way. Obviously Trump winning and them doing the Bitcoin strategic reserve and planning on buying 200,000 Bitcoin a year for the next 5 years is extremely bullish, so we're probably pushing a little bit harder than if Kamala and the Democrats had won, but either way, it was going to take off at this period anyway. So hopefully that makes sense. And then so we want to play the cycles, right? And we'll be selling towards the all-time high and then rebuilding our bags during accumulation. We'll go through that in a bit. But the next part of the strategy is you want to be swing trading using a system, any system, but we use the long-term VWAP system because it's just so accurate and it just makes your life easy, and you can make ridiculous amounts of money just swing trading on the 4-hour, on the daily time frame while you're like working your job, so you can get extra money to DCA in over the rest of the cycle. You don't have to be a full-time trader. Like a lot of people think to make money in crypto, you have to only do crypto, you have to be full-time, just on the 5-minute chart, wasting your entire life looking at a screen. That's absolutely not true. That's why I like using the long-term VWAP system, so I can live my life at the same time, but also make money in crypto and play the cycles and build serious wealth. So here's an example of a couple of trades recently. The green dot down the bottom there is when I gave the signal to our community that we were going to go long on SUI. And you can see the result afterwards. So we reclaimed the value area low here, and then the next opportunity to get in would have been either taking out the VWAP level, which is the blue line in the middle there, or then when we flip to the value area high, and that's where the yellow arrows are, and that's the next setup of that type of system where you'd be buying a retest of the value area high before it takes off. So we're looking for the value area high to hold here. So those are the two late entries, and we look for the pin bar, which is another candlestick setup that we look for an entry trigger. I think they're pretty easy to identify those entries. It's basically the same thing every time. You're looking for a retest of a key level or a Morningstar reversal or a pin bar off that level. So those are trade triggers there. And you can see that obviously that played out to be a really good trade. And then we have, this one is on the trade on Dogecoin. And we have the other entries there. You can see it's basically the same thing. We're reclaiming the value area low here after the big falling wedge, reclaiming the value area low, which is the gray box area. And you can see the same, we're looking for the same pin bar entries off the key level. And then the next one was either a reclaim of the blue line, which is our VWAP area, or a pin bar off the blue line, which is the next one over. You can see as well that it perfectly rejected the first time off the top of the value area. So one of the key trades is you reclaim value area low and you set your target to basically take profit at value area high. And the reason why this system works so well is because it relies on a Wall Street trading system called VWAP. So VWAP is basically where there's going to be institutional demand, because this is where all institutions can easily just average in and out of the market, and they have zero risk that they've entered or exited at the wrong time for their clients, because they're getting in at the average price. So if their clients complain or anything like that, well, I got you in at VWAP, so it's like the fairest way. I don't know if you guys have dealt with many people that work in corporate finance. All they care about is keeping their job and collecting their pay packet. Obviously they're trying to do well for their clients, everything like that, but at the same time, they're just trying to make sure they don't have any risk, right? So if they can take an easy way out, basically using something like the VWAP system, they do it. And so that's why we always have really good reactions at these levels. And then the box area is just the standard deviation either side of the VWAP. So let's go to the next slide. Here's a couple of trades here on Solana. So we've got the inverse head and shoulders here matching up, and then we also have the retest there for the right shoulder off the blue level, which is the long-term VWAP level. This is a yearly long-term VWAP with a developing yearly VWAP, right? So that was a trade trigger, called that to the community, Holly with us nailed that. And then the second entry was just the flip of the neckline as well. So these are very easy trades to take. This is a daily time frame. Anybody should be able to take these if you just know what you're looking for. All right, so here is my Bybit terminal, and you can see that this is the trade that I took. So I took the original trade on the shoulder, and then I actually moved my stop loss to the neckline, and then I got stopped out for a little bit of profit on the first one. You can see the sell signal there. And then I was like, well, we're retesting the neckline here. We're still in the same trade. I'm just going to re-enter. And you see that I re-entered there, and that's about $12,000 profit on that one. All right, so we want to be basically building our bag over the cycle, using our swing trading strategy, and then rotating through altcoins. That's the next thing that we want to be doing. Now, everybody keeps on asking me at the moment, when are altcoins going to finally take off and run? So the key is altcoins finally take off and run after Bitcoin has its first pullback. So if you go back and look at the last couple of cycles, after Bitcoin broke through its all-time high, it went on a rally for a couple of months. We went from 20K all the way up to 40K, pulled back to 30K, and it was when Bitcoin finally bottomed at 30K off a key Fibonacci level, which we talk about in our course as well. We call it a macro fib, and it bounces off that key macro fib level, and that's when altcoins finally started to move and they started to outpace Bitcoin. So you can look at a few things. You can watch the Bitcoin chart and wait for it to bottom again, or you can look at the Bitcoin dominance chart and the others chart. So the next part is to swing trade using Bitcoin and using it as margin, and also just taking extra Bitcoin trades. All right, so here's another example of a Bitcoin trade I took recently, just off the same level. So you see it's the exact same strategy again. We're just off the long-term VWAP level. We've got the pin bar there. That's a Morningstar reversal, so we know that it's confirming, right? So then obviously takes off from there. And then here's that trade, $20,000 profit. You can see my buy entries there, right? So like a lot of people up here talking on stage being like, oh yeah, follow my strategy. It's this, that, and the other, ride the waves, whatever. You know, but I just show you guys a couple of trades here. And like, yeah, they're not the most massive trades. It's probably like 30K across those two trades, but like obviously I have massive spot trades as well. And the way that I like to look at the market, it's all about how much you're risking. You need to be comfortable with how much you're going to lose. And obviously these aren't the only two trades I'm in at the moment, and we're in a very highly correlated market as well. So you need to think about that as well. And you need to be comfortable with whatever you're risking at that time. But basically what I then do is I'll take that profit, so that's like 30 grand off those two trades, right? I will then take that and then I'll buy more Bitcoin and I'll stack my bag, and I'm consistently building my Bitcoin bag over the cycle. And then from there, you know, we're going to rotate through our altcoins as well at the right time using our spot bags when Bitcoin does bottom after its initial pump. Rotate through altcoins at the right times, ride those pumps on altcoins, but I never want to be holding altcoins for a long period of time because those things will fucking crash on you like you wouldn't believe, right? So you're in the altcoins for a short amount of time. You don't want to be holding them for a long period of time, okay? So the aim is to constantly be taking your profit from your leverage trades, constantly be taking profit from your altcoin swing trades, and be rotating back into Bitcoin, building the bag of Bitcoin as much as you can, and then selling at the all-time highs like what we did in 2021. So these are my two posts. The all-time high post, this was November 13 in Australia, so it was November 12. The all-time high was November 10 in 2021, and this is my post and all the reasons why I thought that we were going to top, right? So you can join our Facebook if you want to. It's, I think, Facebook.com/CryptoParadox. It's a free group. Or, you know, search me up on Instagram, Kyle Stagoll, and, you know, you'll see all my videos and posts, and you can get into our communities if you want to. And I posted this in here, and, you know, this is the post that one of our members over here was talking about, and, you know, thanked me for putting that up because she managed to sell. And then one of our other members as well, Jarbs, took the ETH all-time high post, and he managed to sell pretty much all his Ethereum at that time, and then he managed to reaccumulate. He started off with $10,000 in 2018, sold basically on the post that I put up there, and then he reaccumulated at the bottom of the market cycle, and now he's, well, I mean, he posted before this last pump, but I'm guessing he has a seven-figure portfolio now, but he said he's very close to having a seven-figure portfolio, right? So we look to sell the all-time high, and then basically from there, we're looking to reaccumulate during the accumulation stage. Now, accumulation is a very obvious pattern that pops up, and this is what it looks like. And it's basically what happens when the whales are manipulating the market, manipulating the younger, more inexperienced traders so that they can basically manipulate their emotions to sell at the wrong time. And that's what we call the spring here. So the spring is when the whales take control of the market during accumulation, and then they dump it to make everybody panic sell under the range low so they can load up their bags, because these guys have such massive bags that they can't possibly get in without everybody else being selling into them. Does that make sense? So they need you to panic sell so that they can load up their bags. Then they reclaim the range low, and then we pump from there. So let's have a look at the last cycle. This is what it looked like with our spring. Obviously that coordinated with the FTX collapse as well. Probably helped down a little bit by CZ, but I'm sure that CZ and the rest of the cartel were loading up pretty nicely during that spring. And anyway, it reclaims 20K, and that's like the most obvious entry ever for the start of this cycle. You know, we're already pushing 100K, so getting it at 20K was the obvious accumulation entry. Right, so then the next entry is after you cross through an obvious trend line through the middle of the range. That's the next entry to start loading up during accumulation. And then once you break out the top of the range high, which is about 25K through here, and then you can see that from there, you break out you call what's a sign of strength, and it retests the range high and then takes off from there. And then basically we go through the same cycle again. So we have accumulation, we have the spring, then we go through reaccumulation, sorry, then we have our markup, and then we go through a smaller reaccumulation. You have a spring again there with the fake out, and then you have a markup again, and then we have a much longer reaccumulation, which we just went through for 250 days. And then we have another spring in there as well. You can see the big panic sell, which is where, you know, a bunch of us loaded up. Chris actually nailed like the bottom 5-minute candle on there. And what are you up at the moment? Like probably 50K or something like that on that trade. So it was ridiculous entry. He's absolute sniping god. But I better keep moving fast because I'm running out of time. But basically, if you follow this strategy, it's really not that difficult. Anyone can do it. You know, just trading a few high time frame swing moves, building your bag over the cycle, selling near the all-time high. You don't have to nail the top like I did, but you know, it definitely helps if you sell the exact top. But you know, if you sell anywhere near the all-time highs and then reaccumulate over the next cycle, in your second cycle, you should be able to build a pretty large portfolio. So I truly believe, like right now, it's probably the best time to be getting involved in the crypto markets. If you're a new person, you have a small account, like you think back to the start of the story, like if you're Vincent and you're sitting here, you got 5K, you got 10K or something like that in your account, yes, you can build a 7-figure portfolio. I believe in the next 3 years it's possible, and right now is the most important time to be getting involved. Because if you get started now, and you do well during this bull market, and you sell near the all-time high, you don't have to nail the top, but anywhere near the all-time high, and then you increase the size of your bag on the way down, and then you reload near the bottom during the accumulation period. All you have to do is then follow the same strategy and ride that up into the next bull market. Once you get back to all-time highs, the amount of coins that you have in your bag is so much larger. You can easily triple your bag in a bear market and then rebuy. Now, let's say you had $100,000 by the end of this bull market, you can easily have like $300,000, $400,000 just by the time we get back to the previous all-time high, right? So then it's not that, you only need like a 1-2x then to have a 7-figure portfolio. If you can't do that in the next bull market, like you're obviously doing something wrong, right? So I believe if you have the right community, if you have the right systems, you know, over the next couple of years, you can really build something pretty special and change your life. So in closing, we're back to the story of the two brothers and Vincent and Anton. And basically in the story, the movie Gattaca, and I'm sorry if I'm going to spoil the movie for you. You had fucking 30 years to watch it, so you should have watched it. I'm sorry. But basically what happens is he becomes an astronaut. He completely changes his life, and he does so much better in life than his brother. And his younger brother eventually catches up with him, and he's a police officer, and there's a murder mystery. And Vincent's one of the suspects, even though he didn't do it, and all this stuff's going on. And he finally figures out that he's been using somebody else's DNA to become an astronaut, right? Because in this dystopian world in the future, you're rated off not who you are, what your spirit is, how hard you work, but what your DNA says you're capable of, right? And basically, that's why I love this story, because it matches up the person who has a small account versus the person who has a big account, right? And what happens if they start racing against each other? To go back to the start of the story, they start racing against each other, and they're swimming across the ocean, and Anton starts to pull up, and he gets scared because they're going deeper. They're swimming way too far out, and he can't understand. how his older brother that isn't genetically perfect. He's a genetically perfect human being. He's been told this his entire life. He can't understand how his younger brother is outperforming him, how he's swimming out further, how he's swimming ahead of him. And he pulls him up and he goes, Vincent, how are you doing this? How have you done all of this? How are you doing this? And Vincent stops and he looks at him and he says, you want to know how I'm doing this? You want to know how I'm doing this, Vincent? I never saved anything for the swim back. I never saved anything for the swim back. So what I will tell you guys, you have 12 months now until the top of this bull market. I am telling you guys right now, do not fucking save anything for the swim back. Go all in. Change your life in the next 12 months by learning the skills of how to trade these markets. You don't have to be a full-time trader, only looking at the market 24/7. Just understand these markets, understand how to play the cycles, and you can have everything you've ever dreamed of. You can create the life you want to create. You can have the life I've been able to build for myself, and I'm telling you guys, it's fucking worth it to go all in. So I'm going to sign off with saying, work hard and don't save anything for the swim back. Go all out and change your life in 2025. Thank you.